We're looking at the three blessings slide, which is Genesis 1:28. And be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. So this is interpreted in Divine Principle by saying that to be fruitful is the first blessing, which means to grow up and mature, and then to multiply is the second blessing. And so then fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air. So this is establishing a certain order and saying that Adam and Eve should be the center of that hierarchical command structure, you might say, or not just command structure, but center of value, by which to receive love from God, all things, including the angels, have to go through Adam and Eve. And as the body of God, as the Hillsong of God. And amazingly, the Bahir, the earliest Kabbalistic book, officially considered a work of Kabbalah, that was published around 1100 in Europe, and Provence, France, I believe it was. And also Gershom Scholem did a 100-page doctoral dissertation on the Bahir, by the way. And he's a famous Kabbalist who raised up Kabbalah as a scholarly field in the 1900s. And so anyway, in the Bahir, it points out that the birds of the air are understood as flying things of heaven and are interpreted to mean the angels. So God is saying that Adam and Eve should have dominion over the angels. So this became part of the motivation, according to the Bahir, for the wicked Samael, which corresponds to Lucifer in Judeo-Christianity, or in Christianity rather, because it's Samael in Judaism, and for him to fall by seducing Eve. So this is important to clarify, the motivation of Lucifer. So many of our church members who have studied Divine Principle for a long time still don't necessarily, we can't claim that we know exactly what motivated Lucifer. But we can say that, to the degree that we prayed about it and have personal experiences or see fallen nature in ourselves with respect to competition for position or power or money or this kind of thing, and we see fallen nature in ourselves, and we understand something about Lucifer's motivation. But according to the Bahir, the main thing was that Lucifer didn't want to be under Adam. It wasn't that he was seduced by the overpowering beauty and love of Eve. Lots of sisters tend to look at it that way, but my own understanding realizes that's part of it, but the more central point was that Lucifer didn't want to be replaced as the mediator between God and all things. And so anyway, let me go on to the next slide here. So what does it mean to grow up and be fruitful? It means to grow to spiritual maturity by obeying God's word. And it means unite our mind and body and prepare to receive God's second great blessing, the blessing of marriage. So then let's see what's happening here. So, okay. Now, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. That's John 1:1. 1 Corinthians, do you know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, which you have from God? You are not your own. And 1 Corinthians 6:20, you were bought with a price, so glorify God in your body. So this is explaining especially the Christian expression that the human body is a temple of God. And so therefore we belong to God. And this is a very important sense to realize that we ourselves, in terms of existing beings who are living for the sake of others, that we don't belong to ourselves, but we fundamentally belong to God, and even this establishes the value of every human being, and even of everything, that the universe is the creation of God, and human beings are a temple of God, and even all things are holy. And so in this way also, St. Paul said that those who say there is no God are without excuse. I believe that's like Romans 1:20. And that those who... So anyway, because God has clearly revealed himself in the things that he has made. He has clearly revealed his eternal power and deity in the things that he has made. Okay, a little bit of stumbling there over that, but that's important to point out. So this first blessing representation here is what I call the two-stage process, where the output of stage 1 becomes the input of stage 2. Now, this is a little bit different. This is advancing by itself here. Okay. Not sure how to stop that. Okay. So, this is slightly different than Father's explanation. However, that most people are familiar with, rather. So, usually you see the top 4-position foundation. It produces the logos, the inner Sunsong, inner Hyungsong, centered on purpose, produce the logos as the result. And that's the considered the inner quadruple base. So then the logos is shown usually going into the Sunsong and from the side. And so then, again, centered on purpose, the Sunsong, Hyungsong, centered on purpose, produce the perfect person. And so this particular way that I drew it is simply saying, well, I'm moving the logos up to the origin position. And there's a justification for doing that, and that is Christology in divine principle. So unification thought is unification thought, and Father approved it, but Father also approved divine principle. And so the Christology chapter in the divine principle actually, which I don't want to go into detail in it, but by reading it and explaining based on directly what's in there, it says the logos has dual characteristics. So, because God created the logos, and through the logos God created all things, so all things have Sunsong and Hyungsong. So we can easily say logos has Sunsong and Hyungsong. And, so that's the justification for this diagram, for example. But other explanations of Father, especially after Dr. Lee passed into the spirit world, such as Father's love, life, lineage, conscience diagram, Father clearly explains, and which I get into in a little bit here. So just ordinarily, people might be shocked, and they say, oh, I didn't see Father draw that diagram. I saw Father draw like this, like this. So anyway, this conflict and friction comes up, and we have fundamentalists who say, oh, I don't like what you did because Father didn't do that. Well, actually, Father, I get into what other things that Father did draw, and the fact that this works so well to show the connection between unification thought and the Jewish tree of life and the Hindu tree of life, etc. This works really well to make that comparison. That's one reason why I'm doing it. But also I realized this particular representation, which some of Father's diagrams are like this, but not this particular one. But people have to see this. Anyway, this next diagram, which comes up shortly about the original mind, is definitely Father's diagram, and it was in the Ambassadors of Peace manual in 2003 in Korea. in other words, the Korean Ambassadors of Peace Manual. So anyway, this particular diagram, what I'm going to say is the logos is later. It's in that diagram that I just described from Korean Ambassador of Peace. The logos is the bonchim. It's the original mind. So when I discussed this a little bit with Dr. Carlson, Dr. David Carlson, who teaches at the seminary near Cheonpyeong Lake, he said it's correct. It's just it's just same diagram with different words stuck in there, but basically they mean the same thing. So anyway, there's a lot of justification for presenting this way, and so another one is simply that God is within our mind. And Father said many times this kind of thing. God is so close to us, closer than our breathing. And so therefore it's difficult for people to see because God is so simple, so close to us. So God is within us. And so also, if I might mention, one time I was, one of my personal experiences, and actually a lot of people have had experiences like this. What's another brother? He's from Middle East there. Let's see, what's his name? Anyway, he just wrote something like this on one of the Facebook lists, one of his deep experiences. But anyway, what this is this experience. Okay, stumbling here, but let me get down to this experience. It's kind of important. One time I was doing the heart meditation before I joined Unification Church, and that I had learned this Raja Yoga heart meditation. So you pay attention to your heart, you remember God, and you have a humble attitude, and the idea is that the heart is an energy center. And so actually, Father directly said that the heart and the eyes represent God. And in reality, that the first part of the developing baby in the womb, the fetus, is the heart and the eyes. And Father said, scientists say the brain, but Father said they're wrong. It's not the brain. It's actually the eyes and the heart. And so we might say, well, Father's just wrong. But actually, if you look at some of the pictures of the developing fetus, there's the eyes right away are very huge. And so, in other words, there's like part of the brain, but there's these huge eyes sticking out of the brain. And so I dare say that the energy of God is the first thing that interacts with the human cells, and that this energy of God manifests as the heart, the beginning of the circulatory system, and also as the eyes, and the beginning cells that are to control vision and the eyes. In other words, the eyes and the optic nerve, and etc. So, in other words, begins with God. So Father's explanation like this unifies science and religion. And also it's important in Raja Yoga to understand that there's an actual energy center in the heart that represents God. And the Father said that many times. And just if people had ears to hear, they listened. And otherwise, especially if people watch the video, and Father says God, and then he points, he puts his hand on his chest with his thumb touching his heart, for example. And, so this kind of action of Father, along with Father's words, is very clear to anybody who studies Raja Yoga. Father's saying that the heart represents God. So anyway, one time I was had learned this meditation and was doing it, and then I went to sleep. Then I had some dream, and I became afraid of something in my dream. And then I began to pray. So I looked up into the blue sky, and I said, "Oh God!" And there was this wah, wah, and it was getting louder and louder. And I began to pray, and it got even louder, and it became even more afraid. But then I realized, oh, that's actually just my own heart beating. that I was experiencing the sound of in my dream. That was my own heart beating. And that God's not up there in the blue sky, but God's in my heart. And so that as soon as I realized that in the dream,